Hello everybody, hope you've had a great Christmas. It's Sunday evening and as you know I release videos on life in France versus the UK every Sunday and Thursday evenings, 6 o'clock UK time. So if you want to see more of life in France compared to the UK, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit that red button so you don't miss any future videos. Now, I've changed the subject matter for tonight's video. I was going to talk about the French healthcare system compared to the NHS, but I've decided, due to the terrible year everybody around the world has experienced, we've got New Year's Eve coming up, so I wanted to create a positive video. Now, I've mentioned in an earlier video that it was through goal planning that I ended up getting to France before hitting 40. So I wanted to talk about goal planning today, how it works for me and why it can work for you. The one thing I've noticed in France, I know I'm living in rural France, but I've been here 14 years and I've never met anyone with what I call electricity coming off of them. I've met a lot of people in the UK and I've yet to go to the States, but from what I see there's loads of people in the States like this. People who, when they walk into a room, the atmosphere of that room changes. They just have a vibe. It's like, I call it electricity coming from them. And they can lift a room and lift an audience and lift people. And I just don't see that in France. But it's one of the reasons I came to France, because I've chose to get out of the rat race that was in the UK, chasing money and so forth, and I wanted a quieter life in France. And I've certainly found it. As I said, I've never come across anyone in 14 years in rural France that have got that spark, that have that entrepreneurial spirit. You know, the one thing a lot of people say about France is that the customer service is terrible. And I think one of the reasons for that is if you're over 25 years of age, you have what's called a job for life. It's very hard to get rid of people, to sack them, once they're over 25. And for that reason, in France, it's also very hard to get a full-time contract because of the implications, how hard it is to get rid of a person if they're not good to the job. And that's why if you go to some places, the customer service is terrible. But enough said about that. Goal planning. When I was about 22, I went off on a course on neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. In America, there's a guy called Anthony Robbins, who's absolutely famous for this. I went to a course by a guy called Jack Black up in Glasgow, and basically the whole concept of neuro-linguistic programming is that your brain is split into two halves. You have your left hand side, which is your analytical side, that's where the maths and science comes from, and then you have your right hand side, which is your imagination. And people who are very into music, art, they are very right-minded people. When we're born, we're using both sides of the brain, but through the education system, some people, it's like flexing muscles, work on their left-hand side to become very analytical in the way they do things throughout life. And others are pushed into the right-hand side, music, arts, drama, and they become more right-sided. Now, with neuro-linguistic programming, the thing you have to remember is that your brain likes balance. It doesn't like disorder. Now, there's a German word called gestalt. And what this is, whenever you look up into the clouds and your brain starts to form images, that's gestalt in action. Your brain cannot accept a mishmash, so it tries to create order. And this is where the goal planning comes into play. Before I go into how it works, I just want to share with you, in 1954 at Yale University in the States, they did a survey of all those students that were about to leave. So you've got all the high academics of the best school, college in the States, and one of the questions was, have you goal planned? What percentage do you think actually said yes, they've goal planned? just 10%. And then part B of that question was, if you have goal planned, have you written your goals down? Only 4% of the full 100% had actually put pen to paper and wrote their goals down. Now, that survey was done and left. 20 years later, someone decided to find out what happened to the class of 54. Took them about a year and a half to find them, because they were split all around the world by then. This is the fact, not the 10%, but the exact 4% of that population that actually put pen to paper and wrote their goals down earned more than the 96% put together. And that's the power of goal planning. Just to give you an example of why it works, an analogy, if you imagine you're in a sailboat without a rudder, you're at the sole discretion of where the wind and tide take you. If your luck's in, you end up somewhere nice. If your luck's not good, you end up somewhere rotten, or even worse, you sink. As soon as you put pen to paper, you've got goals in your life, you now give yourself a rudder. So you have direction in life. You know the course you're setting. So you actually get to the place you want to get to. And because you know where you want to go to, you give yourself a motor as well. You put a lot more energy into it. And that's why the goal planning works. Now, one of the reasons I came to France was I wrote my goals down. At 37, my marriage had fell apart, and I decided to rewrite my goal to get to France before hitting 40. The initial goal was at 55. And sure enough, I got here 6 months before hitting 40. To explain how it works even more so, at the age of 30, I wrote all my goals down. I then came across my best friend's brother-in-law, who had multiple car sales rooms. And again, he was one of these guys that just lifted a room with his presence. And I said to him, "What do you think, Derek? These are my goals for the next 10 years. And he said, "Great, Mark, the fact you've actually written your goals down is fantastic. But 10 years is too long. Shorten it down to 5 years. To explain what the goals were at the time, I don't mind telling you now. I had to earn £100,000 a year. I needed to buy a house for £250,000, a period cottage. I wanted a sports car, an MGF. I'll explain why just the MGF rather than something more expensive in a little while. And I wanted to go to the Maldives. And fifth, to get married. When my best mate got married 5 years later, I was his best man, and his brother-in-law was there, and I actually went up to him and shook his hand. I said, "Thanks very much, Derek. Thanks to you, I shortened my goal plan and I've achieved all my goals." Fantastic. Oh, by the way, the reason for the sports car, I was always told not to go over 20 grand on a car. Because I was in sales, if I turned up at a client's house in a very expensive car, they'd just shut the door on me. They wouldn't want to know. You're too flash. So as a word of warning, don't be too flash. So that's why I went for a 20 grand car, MGF. I've always had MG. I had an MGB and MGC in the past, 1966 car. And then when the MGFs came out, I had to get one of them. So that was why I had that. Okay, the secret of goal planning, as I said, is to write your goals down. And what you need to do is create a goal book. And you create what's known as a future history. So you write your goals down. For example, my 5 goals. First one, to earn £100,000 a year. So you write as though you've actually achieved that goal. So, and what you do, you say, "Wow, I've just earned £100,000 this year. My life has changed dramatically. Because I'm earning this money, I can do X, Y, Z. I feel so much more comfortable. I've noticed that I'm finding more clients with a lot more money because I've got a lot more money. I'm associating with people that have a lot more money themselves, and it just seems to be an upward spiral." And you write it as though you've already achieved it. Second one, the car. You write just a little summary of what it feels like to drive that special car. And you have a picture of the car in your book as well. Also mentioned the Maldives. So within there I sort of wrote, what a wonderful holiday, best holiday I've ever had in my life. The Maldives are spectacular. And I actually try to relive this future holiday. And I have loads of pictures of the Maldives in my dream book. The house, this is a prime example. There was a local estate agents near to where my other house was, and I went in there and they just sold this house for £260,000. It was a period cottage, inglenook fireplace, beams throughout. And I said, excuse me, what are you doing with the brochure? They said, oh, we're about to throw it away. I said, do you mind if I have it? And they gave it to me, and I stuck that in my goal book. And sure enough, everything I wanted, I got. And what you have to do is when you wake up in the morning, you have to read your goals. And just before you go to bed, that's the most important part. First thing in the morning, last thing at night. Why? Because when you first wake up in the morning, you're not wide awake. Your right-hand brain is still functioning because you're in the dream-like state. Your analytical side, when you first wake up, hasn't started functioning properly. So if you read your goals first thing in the morning, you're pushing that image into the right-hand side of the brain. This is the key. The right-hand side of your brain has no limitations. It's your right-hand side of the brain that allows you to dream when you're asleep. When you dream, there are monsters, you can fly, you can be Superman, you can do whatever you want because there's no limitations to the right-hand side of the brain. So when you first wake up in the morning, you're still using that right-hand side of the brain and you're forcing this image and these images of your goal plan into the right-hand side of the brain. Last thing at night, you're getting very drowsy, very sleepy. Again, you're switching from being wide awake, using the left-hand side of the brain, to switching over to the right. So again, you feed that brain those images of your future history. The right-hand side of the brain accepts those messages. And basically, things just start happening in life that help you get to achieving your goals. Another way of thinking about it, for the majority of people, they walk around life looking at their feet. You go out next time and see how many people actually look ahead. Not many. A lot of people, when walking out, will actually look at their feet. As soon as you put your goals down on paper, you start walking upright and your eyes and ears are open to opportunities. These opportunities are always flying past you. But because you haven't got your goals written down, your ears and eyes are closed to those opportunities. But as soon as you put pen to paper and you have those goals written down, your eyes and ears are awake. And all of a sudden you start noticing these opportunities. You start noticing, oh, if I go and talk to that person, it may not necessarily get me to my ultimate goal, but it gets me one step closer. And things just start to happening. It's just magical. Trust me, give it a go. For YouTube, it can work the same. Write down your goals, where you want your channel to be in a year's time. And what you'll find is that you'll tend to put more energy into your channel when you have your goals written down. And also you'll just come across people that can help you get closer to those goals. Things just start to happen. It's a wondrous thing. Neuro-linguistic programming. Look it up. Just another thing regarding goal planning. There's another thing that I always used to say to my guys. Think, act, believe, become. And it's this future history scenario. For example, I used to do bodybuilding competitions. I used to think like I was a champion, act like a champion, believe that I was a champion, and I became a champion. You just tend to put more energy into whatever you're doing if you create that mindset. People used to say to me, Mark, you know, it's all right, well and good, you telling people you've won a competition 6 months before the competition. What happens if you lose? And I did lose sometimes. But I came in the best shape that I've ever been because I had that winning attitude. And I used to say to people, guys, yes, it hits me hard if I lost, if I didn't come first, but then that's down to the judges. In my mind, I won. But this is the key point. For 6 months, in my mind, I was a champion. I trained like a champion, I ate like one, I believed I was, and I came in the best shape I could. And yes, for 2 weeks afterwards, I felt down, but you just bounce back. If I had let's switch it round to the other scenario, that I didn't believe I was a champion, I'd just be nice to place. Guess what? I had that once and I came nowhere. Came in the worst shape I could because I didn't train like a champion, I didn't act like a champion. It just works. You need to get this mindset. Think, act, believe, become. Another thing, I met a guy called Clive Holmes. He used to have £1,000 in his pocket all the time. He just said it made him feel better. It made him feel successful by having £1,000. For me, I dressed like success. I must admit I had to have tailored suits because of my physique. But you know, my suit was £750. I wore £150 shoes. Shirts were £80, £90, £30, £40 tie. You know, gold cufflinks. All in all, I was probably wearing £1,200, £1,300 plus outfit going out to work, sitting in front of my clients. As a comparison, my best mate at the time, he used to laugh at me and say, "Oh Mark, you know, I've got kitted out, shoes, suit, shirt and tie, under £100. Difference was, he never succeeded. Whereas I achieved all my goals. Think, act, believe, become. So, what I'm going to do is leave you on this thought. We've all gone through a horrible year this year. Write down your goals of what you like to achieve for 2021. Look at them in the morning, look at them in the evening. Create a future history for yourself, and let's all make 2021 a great year. Let's all get that electricity in our bodies and just lift everyone else up. I wish you all the best for 2021. If you have any questions about neurolinguistic programming or any more things about life in France that you want me to cover, please leave a comment below and I will see you next Thursday. Take care everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit different video and I look forward to seeing you Thursday. Take care and Happy New Year.